Hi, this is Dr. Viteri again, and we're continuing along little by little, getting through our Dominion diet lesson. And in this lesson, I'm going to cover a couple of things that are a little bit more practical, a little bit more of a technical or technical nature that we have to pay attention to, as far as recording foods that we're eating, how to calculate a couple of numbers, and just being able to be diligent with the following through of our dietary plan and the foods that we're eating. Now, what do you actually do with your food diary log? I mean, I tried to make it as self-explanatory as possible. We have different categories where we can log things in. Obviously, again, some of this is review. We have the time section where I want you to record the time that you eat your foods. So if you're having an apple at 7 o'clock in the morning, you put 7 o'clock, 7 a.m., one medium apple, okay? And then we'll go over to the category and look on the eat sheet, and the medium apple may be 60 calories, and you put 6 points in the fruit section, okay? Now, it's very critical, like I mentioned in the previous lesson, that as you eat food or as you consume something, you need to record it down. Don't wait till later, okay? Now, sometimes it may be completely impossible to do that, but then shortly after you eat, or at least before you have your next meal or next food, time that you're going to have, make sure you record the previous one down, so at least you can keep track. Remember, we spoke about having that bank account effect, and you don't want to write a check in your bank account without knowing what the previous check was and if it cleared. So the same thing goes with your foods. We want to make sure that as we're going through the day, if you don't immediately write down the food that you ate, make sure that before you have your next meal that you record what you previously ate so you can keep track of those numbers. Because as we could see with the carbohydrate family especially, those numbers will add up extremely fast, and we don't want to be surprised with that. So as the day goes on, whenever the time you eat, you put the time. Again, you put the food that you ate, how it was prepared. So you may say at 10 o'clock in the morning, I had an egg and a slice of bread. Well, be a little more specific. Was it a fried egg? Was it an omelet? Was it a cheese omelet? Did you put hollandaise sauce on it? Was it one slice of bread? Was it 5 slices of bread? Did it have 5 pats of butter on it? We need to be specific. You don't want to eliminate something, because everything counts. Okay, there's a number for everything. Everything that has everything that you eat. Okay, other than something that has no calories, like if you're drinking water, or if you have things that are minimal in caloric intake. Everything else will have a calorie to it. So if you're going to have like oatmeal, if you have oatmeal with water, then it's just the oatmeal. But if you have oatmeal with milk, or if you have oatmeal with soy milk, whatever that amount was, you need to put that in that category of the dairy section, because you'll have 120 calories, or 12 point in the carbohydrate family, and then you'll have maybe 6 points in the dairy family. So everything has to be accounted for, and it's critical that you remember this, because if you don't, you may get frustrated and say, oh my goodness, I only had this amount we recorded, but it was erroneous. You didn't have all the other things that went along with it. So every time you eat, you put the time you eat, you put the food, how it was prepared, the volume of the food, and try to put that volume in something that's quantitative, okay? A bowl, a dish, a plate, a small piece, a sliver. They're not quantitative. They can't be measured. It has to be in ounces, okay? It was an 8 ounce, or it was a cup worth. It has to be something that's measurable, because if you don't have the measurable number, you can't sort of transfer that measurable number to a specific amount of calories in that category. So we put the measurable number, and then we go across in the category, whatever it was, if it was a carbohydrate, a protein, a vegetable, you record in that the amount of calorie points that food stuff might have been. So if it was a quarter of a pound of a chicken cutlet, it's 4 ounces of a grilled chicken cutlet, you're going to put 14 in the protein family. If it was if you had some rice with some beans, and it was a cup of rice and a quarter a cup of beans, you're going to put 20 points in the carbohydrate family and you're going to put another 10 points in the protein family. So you have to record that as it goes along, and you need to do that throughout the day. Okay, again, it's critical to keep track of what you're doing throughout the day. Now, another number that you're going to see on that food diary log is a number, especially when you're looking at the sample sheet and you're looking towards the bottom, and I believe it's going to be in yellow letters. In a green background towards the bottom. There's certain percentages that I have right next to the time categories. Okay, you'll see 10%, 15%, 25%, 25%, 15%, and back to 10%. Now, the concept behind those percentages is that we want to start off the day with 10% of the volume of food we're going to eat in the beginning for meal number 1. Then, for example, 2 hours later, we're going to have another meal, but it's going to be 15% of the total volume for the day. The third meal of the day, maybe 2 hours later, and I'll explain that concept in a moment, will be 25% of the bulk of the food for the day. Then 2 hours later, another 25%, and then 2 hours later, 15%, then an hour and 2 hours later, 10%. What you're basically doing is this, is you're spreading out the volume of food throughout the day. You're spreading out the volume of food. So you have the smallest meal in the morning. Now, sometimes we've heard these things, and sometimes we're just hungry when we wake up in the morning, and that's usually because we ate too much late at night. And I found that out a number of years ago, not only reading about it and doing some research, but I noticed it myself. Large meals the day before will always make you hungry the morning after because of the imbalance in the sugar levels that will go on in your body's metabolism, its inability to process it correctly. So if you're not eating that much at night before you're going to bed, when you wake up in the morning, your blood sugar levels are kind of stable and you won't be as hungry as you might be maybe right now. But the concept is in the morning when you wake up, you're really not that busy. You know, you may seem like you're in a rush to go to work and whatever, but it's not really a time where you're burning the most calories. It's not a time where you need the most amount of calories because you're really not that active. You just came from sleeping. You weren't, you know, even if you're having a terrible dream, you're not having that activity level where you need an influx of carbohydrates into your system. So your first meal should only be about 10%. So if we're working with the benchmark number of 1,200 calories, our first meal should not go over 120 calories, okay? That's why we see it in the example, I only have 120 calories. When you add that number across, when you add up all the categories, it comes out to 120 calories or 12 calorie points because we're not that active. As the day goes on, we're going to increase it. Our next meal, so say our first meal is 8 o'clock, our next meal at 10 o'clock, okay? We're going to increase it to 15% of our total number. Why? We're getting a little bit more active. We're just getting to work. We're just getting to school. We're moving around. As the day goes on, okay, 2 hours later, we're sort of peaking in the middle of the day. I know at my office, I'm running around. I run around a lot more from the middle of the late morning through the later part of the afternoon before the evening comes. That's my busiest time with patients. We're dealing with all kinds of who knows what in the health clinic. We have 10 different doctors that work there at any given time. There's a dozen or so staff members. So it gets real busy during the day, and I need my most amount of energy. So you plan it out. So you have that 10%, 15%, 2 hours later, 25%, which is your largest bulk of the meal, of your meals for the day. Then maybe 2 hours later, another 25%. And what it works out to, if you say, for example, your third and fourth meal is 50% of the total amount of food you're going to eat for the day, which is good because it's the busiest time. You have the most availability to actually utilize that amount of carbohydrates and the amount of glucose or the carbohydrates, protein, whatever food source, but the amount of glucose that your body's going to need, that your cells are going to need for energy, you're going to have it available to sort of match the busyness of your day. So you start off not that busy. As your day progresses, you get busier. And then as you come home from work or home from school and you're sort of settling down at night, before. Maybe you're going to watch a little TV, read your Bible, do some whatever you're going to do. You came back from the gym, and you're going to start sort of, calming down before you go to, before you're going to go to bed in a couple of hours. Your meals go down to 15%, and then 10%, which your last meal should be, and that could be maybe about 6 o'clock if you're following that every 2 hour methodology of eating. Again, the key is this: try to, and it's not perfect. We don't live these perfect lives like it's like a perfect. I'm doing nothing in the morning, busy in the afternoon, then I'm chilling out in the afternoon. That's my day has that peak, but sometimes I'll have a meeting at 7 and it goes back up again, and I'm busy as I was earlier in the day. So you may have a similar lifestyle. Your lifestyle may be completely different. May be real busy at 10 o'clock, then you have a break until 2 o'clock, and then you get busy again at 5 o'clock. So you just want to match your meals to the busyness of the day. So if you're busy late morning and late afternoon, but not in the mid-afternoon, then you may want to go 10%, 25%, 15%, 15%, 25%. You may want to change the fluctuation of your eating style to match the busyness of your day. Okay, so whatever the busyness of your day is, you want to match that fluctuating amount of food going in. The reason being is you don't want to have a breakfast that's 800 calories and a dinner that's 600 calories. You don't want to have two extremes, okay? Because what happens is that when you have too much food sources at one time, you're going to, no matter what it is, even if it's healthy, you're going to spike your blood glucose level, which means is that you're not doing enough work or burning enough energy to utilize the amount of glucose that's being poured into your bloodstream. Are you following me? So you may say to yourself, I'm going to have this big breakfast and I'm going to have I'll wait until dinner. You're not doing yourself justice. You're actually doing an injustice, because most of the calories that are being consumed in that one meal, due to the fact that you're not going to burn off that meal anytime soon, that blood glucose level goes up. Your body has, one or two choices. It's either going to put it in muscle cells or it's going to store it in fat cells. And if the muscle cells don't need it, it's just only so much they would be able to handle, and the rest of that glucose that's being broken down from the carbohydrate sources, from the other sources of fruits and other foods that we're putting into our system, that glucose has no other choice but to be converted to a triglyceride, then to a lipid, and then eventually gets stored in a fat cell. So you may be storing fat. Now, if you don't have another meal until 6 hours later, 8 hours later, what's going to happen is your blood sugar level is going to start dropping, because whatever you did eat is stored away. And as your blood sugar level starts dropping, two things happen. One thing sounds good. Your body starts producing certain enzymes and certain hormones to release the fat cells, to release the lipids to get converted back to glucose, so your body can utilize the glucose. So you're thinking you're burning fat at no great rate, because your metabolism, when you're not ingesting food and your blood sugar drops, your metabolism drops too. So it sort of matches it. So when you don't eat, you're actually slowing your metabolism and not burning enough fat or not burning enough energy off, because your metabolism's slowing down. The premise of having those meals every 2 hours period of time, it gives your body that ability to pick, to get the glucose in your blood to a certain level, not too much that you're actually storing it to fat, but just enough to be utilized. And then by the time that glucose level in your blood starts dropping down 2 hours later, bing, you have another meal that goes in. And that next meal, you may be busier, and it's a little bit more food, and it keeps the blood sugar level at somewhat of a steady rate. And that's what we want to do. So we want to increase our levels of food when we're busier, and we want to spread out our meals somewhere around 2 hours apart, so we keep our blood sugar levels sort of at their ideal level. Okay? I'll see you in a few minutes for our next lesson.